intersegment examination. Are you getting my voice clearly? And if you have any query, you can ask me questions at the end of this lecture. Are you getting my voice clearly? Okay. Anterior segment examination. This is a diagrammatic picture of eyeball. It is cut from the center longitudinal section. This is the anterior portion and this is the posterior portion. The anterior portion, this is cornea, and behind the cornea lies the sclera. It is the outermost coat of the eyeball. It is also known as fibrous tissue layer. There are three layers: fibrous tissue layer, vascular layer, and neural layer. Outer fibrovascular tissue is composed of cornea, and behind the cornea lies the sclera. Anterior 1/6 is formed by cornea, posterior 5/6 is formed by sclera. The second layer is also known as vascular tissue layer. It is composed of three parts. This is iris, this is ciliary body, and this is choroid. Iris, this is ciliary body, and choroid. The lens is suspended in the cavity with the help of zonules, and the zonules are attached to the ciliary body. This is vitreous humor. The lens divides internally, the lens divides the eyeball into two segments: anterior segment and posterior segment. Anterior structures anterior to the lens are known as anterior segment, and posterior to the lens is posterior segment. Posterior segment is composed of vitreous humor and retina. You can see the retina, and this is optic nerve. Anterior segment starts from cornea up till lens. It has got two chambers. The anterior cavity or anterior segment has got two chambers: anterior chamber and posterior chamber. Iris divides the anterior segment, the anterior cavity into two chambers: anterior chamber and posterior chamber. Anterior chamber and posterior chamber, this whole is comprised of anterior cavity. Behind the lens lies the posterior cavity, or which is filled with vitreous humor. So the eye is divided by lens into two segments: anterior segment and posterior segment. I have told you. Anterior segment examination, that is examination from cornea up till lens, can be done with the help of torch examination, or nowadays we are using slit lamp examination. But you are only asked examination about asked about anterior segment examination from the torch, not from the slit lamp. Anterior segment examination can be done using diffuse light using torch, or focal illumination using slit lamp biomicroscope or loupe. With the help of slit lamp examination unaided, that is without any lens, we can see up till 1/3 of the vitreous. Here you can see up till 1/3 of the vitreous. But with the help of 90 diopter lens, we can see up till whole retina. This is a figure showing an examination with the help of torch. The torch is placed obliquely at about 45-degree angle, and we can see these lids, lashes, eyebrows, upper lid, this cornea, pupil, iris. So you have to do all the examination in a systematic way, from outside to inside. You have to look start from eyebrows, any dissimilarity, asymmetry between the two eyebrows. Then you have to examine the lids, upper lid and lower lid. Upper lid covers the superior 2 millimeter of cornea. The lower lid touches just the limbus. What is the limbus? The junction zone between the cornea and sclera. So it just touches the limbus, while the upper lid covers the superior 2 millimeter of cornea. The corneal diameter is about 11 to 12 millimeter in diameter. And this is the figure. You can see this doctor is examining this patient with the help of slit lamp. But this, you can see a 90 diopter lens or some lens. With the help of this lens, he can see up till retina. Our topic remains up to the lens examination. So systematically, you should examine the eyebrows, then eyelids, then eyelashes, conjunctiva, then sclera. Then you have to start from cornea, anterior chamber, posterior to the cornea lies the anterior chamber, then iris, then pupil, and the last lens. So look at this picture. You can see the asymmetry between the two eyebrows. This in the right eye, the eyebrow is covering the pupil. But when we elevate this eyelid with the help of our finger or thumb, this portion becomes evident and it is normal like this. So this is a brotosis, not actual ptosis, but brotosis. You have to see the symmetry of the ptosis, of the eyebrows of the two eyes. You should see the wrinkling. You should see the eyebrow hairs. They are very scanty. If the eyebrows or eyelashes are scanty, we call it as madarosis. MADAROSIS. So the eyelids, you have seen, look for asymmetry. The lid crease, superior lid crease, ptosis. What is ptosis? I will tell you: eyelid edema, dermoid cyst, chalazion, stye, or any other benign or malignant tumors. This is a picture showing a nodule which is not painful, not red, congested, painless nodule in the lower lid. This is chalazion, and this is inflammation of the meibomian gland, inflammatory granulomatous inflammation of the meibomian gland. You can see the eyelids are swollen, and this is due to acute allergic edema of the eyelids due to some urticarial reaction, IgE hypersensitivity. This is a case of this. You can see the upper lid covers the superior 2 millimeter. Here it is obstructing the pupil also. This is pupil. This is pupil. And in this figure, it is obstructing up till the pupil. So this is ptosis. What is ptosis? Drooping of the upper eyelid is known as ptosis. You can see there is a painless swelling which is movable at the outer canthus. This is outer canthus, the inner canthus, middle canthus. This is ear. So this is outer or lateral canthus. And just above the lateral canthus lies a painless swelling. It is dermoid cyst. You can see this is a upper lid, lower lid, and this is a lesion temporally. You can see a pigmented lesion at the upper lid. This is stye. What is stye? Acute infection of the hair follicle is known as stye. Acute infection of the hair follicle and associated glands. It is painful condition. So you have to give antibiotics, oral antibiotics also in this case, and you have to remove the hair follicle through which the pus grazes. When you come onto the eyelid margin, you have to see the lid margin, any inflammation, lacrimal punctum, is it open or closed, meibomian gland orifices, or you have to look for signs of the blepharitis, ectropion, entropion, stye. What is blepharitis? Inflammation of the lid margin is known as lid margin, not whole lid. Inflammation of the lid margin is known as blepharitis. It is divided into two parts, anterior blepharitis and posterior blepharitis. And the third one is mixed. When there is inflammation of the anterior part, the skin and muscular layer, that is known as anterior blepharitis. What is ectropion? Outward turning of the eyelid margin is known as ectropion. Outward turning of the lid margin. What is entropion? Inward turning of the lid margin. What is stye? I've told you, acute infection of the hair follicle. So in posterior blepharitis, you can see a oily layer at the meibomian gland orifice. In the anterior blepharitis, when you inspect the lid margin, there is whitish deposition of dental flag deposits or yellowish crusty deposits due to infection. This is a picture of anterior blepharitis. You can see a crusting like deposits at the lashes at its base. This is the upper lid, this is the lower lid. This is the figure showing the blepharitis lid, anterior blepharitis of the upper lid. You can see a nodule like this, umbilicated nodule like this. This is known as molluscum contagiosum at the upper lid margin, which is due to the etiology is usually viral. This is a figure showing ectropion. How you can see this is ectropion? Look, this is medial margin. This is lateral margin. Why it is medial margin and lateral margin? This is caruncle and plica semilunaris. This is lateral margin. And the lid margin laterally, it is away from the sclera. It should be like this. But this is outward turning of the lateral margin. This is ectropion. And it is due to cicatrization. The scarring, you can see here, there is scar formation. It is pulling the lower lid temporally. So this is cicatricial ectropion. This is entropion. You can see this is the margin of the lower lid. Here it is all the hairs are turned inside. This is inward turning of the lid margin. This condition is known as entropion. After the eyebrow lids, then you have to see the eyelashes. The eyelashes. Normally there are 150 eyelashes in the upper lid, about 150, and about 75 in the lower lids. That is, there are less lashes in the lower lid than the upper lid. Scanty lashes, that is decreased number of lashes, are known as metarosis. It's also used for brow hair, scanty brow hairs also. This term metarosis, scanty eyebrow or scanty eyelashes. Poliosis. What is poliosis? This is whitening of the eyelashes. What is trichiasis? Normally, the upper lid lashes are turned downwards and forwards, while the inferior eyelid lashes, they turn outward and downward. When this sequence is reversed, the eyelashes turn inward instead of outwards. This is known as trichiasis. That is inward turning of the eyelashes. When somebody asks what is the definition of trichiasis, inward turning of the eyelashes, a misdirection of the eyelashes is known as trichiasis. What is dystrichiasis? This is acquired when the eyelashes grow from the meibomian gland orifices. When the eyelashes grow from the meibomian gland orifices, which is usually in some chemical burns, that is known as dystrichiasis, or some cicatricial conditions like Stevens-Johnson syndrome or ocular cicatricial pemphigoid. That is known as dystrichiasis. What is metarosis? Scanty eyelashes or eyebrow. What is poliosis? White eyelashes. Trichiasis, misdirection of the eyelashes. Dystrichiasis, abnormal growth of the eyelashes, abnormal growth of eyelashes from the meibomian gland orifices. You should expect the medial and lateral canthi also. This is a figure showing trichiasis. Other hairs are, this is the lower lid, cornea, iris, and you can see this is the lower lid. The other eyelashes are normal, but these two lashes are misdirected and they are irritating the cornea. That can also lead to corneal opacity in late stages. Dystrichiasis. The upper lid is pulled upward to show you these are the meibomian gland orifices and the lashes grow from meibomian gland orifices. This is the dystrichiasis. Xanthelasma. These are yellowish deposits of cholesterol in both the eyelid skin and the medial canthus. These are known as xanthelasma. After examining the lids, brow, lashes, lids, you should come onto the conjunctiva. In conjunctiva, you have to look for any redness or congestion, discharge, that is watery. It may be watery discharge, mucus discharge, mucopurulent discharge, or purulent discharge. Discoloration of the conjunctiva, any bluish color, which which is present in scleritis. The sclera is thin and the underlying uveal tissue is visible. Chemosis, edema of the conjunctiva is known as chemosis. Papilla, papillae and follicles. Papillae are hyperplasia of the epithelium of the conjunctiva, which are thrown into folds, and there is a central vessel. While in follicles, these are lymphoid hyperplasia, lymphoid tissues hyperplasia, and it is surrounded by a vessel. Not in the center is pale. So it is pale colored follicle, but papillae is pinkish or red color. These are the degenerations of the conjunctiva, concretions, calcium-like deposits, pengicula and pterygium. I will show you the figures of pengicula and pterygium. Flecton, or there may be any cyst in the conjunctiva. You have to look for any membranes and pseudomembranes. These are present in severe adenoviral conjunctivitis or bacterial conjunctivitis, but the true membranes are caused by diphtheria and beta hemolytic streptococci. Foreign bodies, any foreign body in the conjunctiva. Look, in this case, the upper lid is everted. How it is everted? This is the method of examination. First, bulbar conjunctiva is examined by retracting the upper lid and lower lid by index finger and thumb respectively. Then lower palpebral conjunctiva is seen by asking the patient to look up and then pulling the lower lid down. While upper palpebral conjunctiva in the previous figure and fornix is seen by asking the patient to look down and then grasp the lid margin by the thumb and index finger, and the lid is everted by using index finger as a fulcrum. Or you can also use a cotton swab stick to evert the upper eyelid. Look, in this figure, you are examining the lower palpebral conjunctiva with the help of a finger pulling the lower palpebral lid downwards. You can see there is diffuse. This is bulbar conjunctiva. There are three types of conjunctiva. Remember, bulbar conjunctiva, which is covering the white of the eyeball, palpebral conjunctiva, which lines the inner surface of the upper lid, and this is the lower lid. The palpebral conjunctiva lines the inner portion of the upper lids and lower lids. This is bulbar, and in between the transition zone lies the fornix, the gap, that is known as fornicial conjunctiva. So you can see here diffuse palpebral, tarsal, also diffuse tarsal and fornicial conjunctival hyperemia or redness or injection or congestion. These are all the words are same. In this condition, this is the upper lid, this is the lower lid, this is a discharge, profuse discharge, mucopurulent discharge. Purulent, actually it is purulent, which is most common in gonococcal infection. This is white subtarsal follicles. It is usually white or yellowish white, yellowish color, pale color. The center is pale while it is surrounded by vessels. This is a figure showing chemosis. Look at this portion. It is not flat. This is cornea, limbus, and it should be flat, but the sclera is filled with fluid. This is known as chemosis, edema of the conjunctiva. These are giant papillae which are present in allergic conjunctivitis. This is the everted portion of the upper lid, and you are seeing there are pale. These are pale, looking pale, but these are actually not pale. You can see small vessels because they are enlarged. If there's a small follicle, there's a center, you can see the vessel. But in this position, you can see small vessels. So these are papillae. While in follicles, these are actually pale. These are giant papillae. Giant papillae is pathognomonic of vernal keratoconjunctivitis. So this is another figure which is showing a degeneration of the conjunctiva in the interpalpebral space. The space of the eye which is open, and you can see the open part of the sclera. At the limbus, there is a yellowish white deposition. This is known as pingicula. It is the same pathology as of pterygium, but in pterygium, it invades the cornea also. So, what is pterygium? It is a triangular fibrovascular proliferation. Triangular, you can see the vessels, vascular part. White part is fibrous tissue part, which is a fibrovascular proliferation, which is a degeneration of the conjunctiva, which has got ultraviolet etiology. Usually in hot climates, the farmers who work in hot climate, they develop pterygium, fibrovascular tissue. They can cause decreased vision when they directly invade the pupillary margin, or when they are mild or moderate size, they can cause astigmatism. When they are mild cases, just touching the limbus, they only cause irritation. In the advanced stage, they can cause astigmatism, and in the third case, they cause decreased vision through direct proliferation up till cornea. Bite-out spots. These are triangular. There's an enlarged figure showing triangular patch bite-out spots. It is due to dryness, which is secondary to vitamin A deficiency. There are goblet cells deficiency in vitamin A. So you may find initially dryness, and they form spots, which are known as bite-out spots. You can see this is a figure showing due to rupture of vessel, the blood goes down the conjunctiva. This is subconjunctival hemorrhage. It may be due to hypertensive. The main cause is hypertension, which can lead to any rupture of blood vessel, or it may be due to some viral hemorrhages, viral infections. So after conjunctiva, we come on to the episclera and sclera. The white of the eyeball is known as sclera. The anteriormost part of the scleral tissue, condensed part, is known as episclera. So episclera covers the sclera. Episclera is further covered by Tenon's capsule, which is further covered by conjunctiva. So the white sclera is visible through the conjunctiva. The points to be noted are their color, congestion, tenderness, any perforation due to any injury. Color, it is pink color or red color. The pink color in episcleritis, inflammation of the episclera is known as episcleritis. It may lead to pink color or red color congestion, while in sclera it is violet color, violet or bluish color congestion. The scleral nodule has got more tenderness, while episcleral nodule is less tender. I'll show only two or three figures. This is scleral atrophy, which shows the inner side of the uveal tract, that is choroidal. Here lies the iris, this is ciliary body, and here lies the choroid. You can see the choroidal layer due to thinness of the sclera. By this sign you can see the scleral atrophy. These two figures are not same. This is an episcleral nodule. In episcleral nodule, episcleritis may be nodular or diffuse. I have taken a figure of nodular episcleritis. Episcleritis in the white portion. There is no congestion in the upper lid or the lower lid conjunctiva. Here lies the congestion over the lid nodule, and the diagnostic test is topical phenylephrine 2.5% test. Means still a drop of 2.5% phenylephrine. If the congestion is due to episclera or conjunctiva, it blanches the vessels, while in cases of scleritis, it does not blanch the vessels. This is the diagnostic test clinically. Number two, this nodule, which is due to episcleritis, it is movable. While in this figure, there is also a nodule, but this is immovable. If you put a phenylephrine drop, it will remain red. Now you can see this part. This is non-congested part. There is no conjunctivitis. This is scleritis. Then you come on to the cornea. We systematically go from outside to inside. First, we have gone through the eyebrow, lids, lid margin, lashes. Then we examine the conjunctiva, then episclera, sclera. Then we come on to the cornea, and then from cornea to optical lens. So in cornea is usually transparent. If you find any opacity or any ulceration, it should be noted. What is ulcer? What is corneal ulcer? Discontinuity of epithelium is known as ulcer. Discontinuity of epithelium of cornea is known as corneal ulcer. If it is due to some trauma, slight ulcer with trauma with the help of plastic or any pencil, it is known as traumatic abrasion. We call it also as abrasion. But if it is not due to trauma, we call it as ulcer. You should remember the ulcer, traumatic ulcer, or any other ulcer. Due to most common cause of corneal ulcer is soft contact lenses. So in cornea, you have to look for transparency. Is it transparent or not? You should note the size of the cornea and curvature. What is the size of the normal cornea? It is 10 to 12 millimeter in diameter. Less than 10 millimeter size is known as microcornea, while more than 12 in cases of infants, while more than 12 in cases of adults, more than 13 in cases of adults. Less than 10 is microcornea, 10 to 12 is normal. More than 12 in infants is known as macrocornea. More than 13 in cases of adults, it is known as macrocornea. Normally it is curved, rounded curved, but if it is conical in shape, that is known as conical cornea or keratoconus. You have to note any opacity. Due to some old ulcer, the opacity may form. If the ulcer is deep, if the ulcer is superficial, it will heal without any scarring, without any opacity. But if there is opacity formation, it means the ulcer is deep. You have to see any foreign body on the cornea. So abrasion, I've told you about abrasion, ulceration, vascularization. If there is any vascularization, it is not normal in cornea. You have to check the corneal sensitivity test. Suppose if you find any ulcer, before doing any diagnostic test, before instilling any anesthetic drops, first you should check corneal sensation with a wisp of cotton. Patient looks in front and from the side you can touch the corneals, the cotton swab. If the corneal sensitivity is normal, it means if the corneal sensitivity is normal, suppose if there is ulcer, it may be bacterial, fungal or protozoal. But if the sensitivity is decreased, the eye, in spite of a 4 millimeter, 5 millimeter ulcer, the eye is not closed and the corneal sensations are decreased. It means that is due to a virus. It may be a viral ulcer. You should note any corneal thickening. Corneal thickening means if there is corneal edema. Corneal edema is a sign of, usually, if there is acute corneal edema, it may be due to increased intraocular pressure. Remember only one condition. Increased intraocular pressure may cause increased corneal thickness. Staining of the cornea. So if you see any ulcer, first you do corneal sensitivity test. You have seen the cornea is, suppose the corneal sensation is decreased, then you stain the ulcer. You may find the shape of the opacity like this. This is another figure showing punctate epithelial keratitis. It is a magnified view. Here you can see, actually this is cornea, iris, this is pupil, this is lens, and you are seeing these branching like deposits or branching like pattern. This is pathognomonic of herpes virus ulcer, dendritic ulcer. It is stained with fluorescent dye. Before instilling the dye, we check corneal sensation with the then if the corneal sensation is decreased, then we stain the ulcer. It is clearly showing it is a dendritic ulcer. So the cause is herpes simplex virus. This is a large corneal ulcer, which is usually due to bacteria. Large corneal ulcer with abscess. Due to any foreign body. This figure is showing, this is cornea, It is not transparent, it is opaque. You can see multiple vessels and there is an opacity. It means there have been a huge amount of ulcer and it is healed by through these vessels. Now it is healed. There is also lipid deposition in the center, which is very mildly seen. So it is lipid deposition with corneal vascularization, or you can see opacity. You can say opacity with vascularization. It is showing old large ulcer with vascularization, which has now healed. Anterior chamber. Anterior chamber you can easily see with the help of slit lamp, but with the torch examination you can just check whether it is normal, shallow, or deep by seeing multiple patients. But on the slit lamp it is clearly visible. The depth and contents are noted. Normally the anterior chamber is clear. Anterior chamber is known as hyphema. What is hypopyon? Hypopyon is pus in the anterior chamber. What is aqueous flare and cells? Aqueous flare and cells in cases of anterior uveitis. Anterior uveitis, you can see a small dot-like cells, and flare is due to protein leakage. In hypermature cataract, you can see the lens particles also on the slit lamp. These things you can see on the slit lamp. But with the torch examination, you can see hyphema or hypopyon. This is pupil, upper lid. This is limbus, and you can see a red clot. This is hypopyon, and it is horizontal shape because of superiorly there is aqueous humor which keeps a fluid level. So this is blood in the anterior chamber. The diagnosis is hyphema. Likewise, you can see in this figure there is corneal ulceration, pus exudate on the cornea, and you can see also a pus in the anterior chamber. Pus in the anterior chamber. This is known as hypopyon. This is corneal ulcer, so the diagnosis is corneal ulcer with hypopyon. Then you should examine the iris. It is the colored part This is the colored part. Behind the cornea, it divides the anterior segment into anterior and posterior chamber. I've told you, anterior to the iris is anterior chamber, posterior to the iris is posterior chamber. So you have to inspect the iris in both eyes. Any abnormality like iris trophy, any transillumination defects, iridodialysis, new vessels. I will show you the figure of these conditions. Iridodonesis. Iridodonesis is actually movement of the iris when you ask the patient to move the eye from left to right or right to left. The iris also moves. That condition is known as iridodonesis. This is coloboma. It is due to non-closure of the fetal fissure in the 5th week of gestation. Here you can see this is pupil, which is slightly dilated. This is iris, and you see multiple holes. These are actually hypertrophied iris, and these hypertrophy iris is very much common in herpes iridocyclitis. This marked iris trophy. Atrophy may also be due to cataract surgery. Suppose if an instrument touches the iris, or during phaco, it touches the phaco probe, it causes atrophy. So this condition is showing marked atrophy of the iris. This is the upper lid, lower lid. You can see this is normal pupil, but you can see iris is gap shaped. There is a gap in the inferior iris, and it is usually due to trauma. It is known as iridodylisis. What is iridodylisis? Disinsertion of the iris at its root. Disinsertion of the iris at its root is known as iridodylisis. So there is a blunt trauma which can lead to iridodylisis. This is a case of inferonasal or inferior coloboma. The pupil should be like this, but in this case, there is a keyhole type of the pupil, and this is known as inferior coloboma of the iris. It is also associated with choroidal coloboma, retinal coloboma, or lid coloboma also. Normally there is no vessel in the iris superficially, but you can see a lot of vessels on the whole side of the iris muscle, and also you can see small vessels at the sphincter pupillae. There are small vessels. So this condition is known as rubeosis iridis. This condition is known as rubeosis iridis, or new vessels at the iris. NVI, new vessels at the iris, or rubeosis iridis. And it is a common case due to new vascular. It may lead to glaucoma. If the pressure is raised with this figure, it is known as new vascular glaucoma. The main causes are: number 1, diabetes mellitus, and number 2, central retinal vein occlusion. In about 70% of cases of rubeosis iridis or new vascular glaucoma, 70% of cases are caused by new vessels, central vein occlusion, and diabetes mellitus. After the iris, you see the pupillary reaction. What is pupil? It is an aperture in the iris, which is about 3 to 4 millimeter. You should see the size of the pupil, whether it is small or dilated. Less than 2 millimeter is known as miosis. More than 6 millimeter is known as mydriasis. Normally, in average, it is about 3 to 4 millimeter, but it is normal up to 2 to 6 millimeter. More than 6 millimeter is dilated pupillae, which is known as mydriasis. Less than 2 millimeter is known as miosis. You have to look for any asymmetry if the pupil is centrally located or eccentric. Pupil is central or eccentric. Size of the pupil, it is miotic or mydriasis or normal pupil. Then you have to see the reaction to light. It is dealt in a separate presentation. Then shape, that is round or oval shaped or any irregular shape. You have to look for other disease also. And any abnormality like posterior synechia. What is posterior synechia? Addition of the iris with the lens is known as posterior synechia. It is usually present in anterior uveitis. Posterior synechia is usually present in anterior uveitis. The pupil is mused, not reacting, and it is small and does not move with the light, does not constrict or dilate. If this 360-degree posterior synechia. You may find any pupillary margin cyst in other conditions also. This is a figure showing unconstricted pupil. It is about 2 millimeter, not miosis, but constricted pupil. This is a dilated mydriasis, more than 6 millimeter, about 7 millimeter. This is a dilated pupil, but you can suspect it as miosis. I'm stopping due to azan. Continue. Start. ये देख लें, ये स्टार्ट कर लो. अजान की वजह से रोक दी थी. कहाँ कर दे बस. ओके, ये तस्वीर आ गई. ठीक है, इसमें स्टार्ट. ओके, so we were on pupil, then lens. What is lens? It is a normal biconvex structure which is crystalline in shape, and it is transparent. It is composed of lens proteins that proteins are known as crystallins. Hence, it is composed of crystallins, lens protein, especially lens proteins which are known as crystallins, which help in the transparency of the lens. When there is denaturation of the lens protein, it causes opacity. Opacity of the lens or its capsule. Opacity of the lens and or its capsule is known as cataract. So you have to look for any opacity in the lens and any abnormality like absence of the lens. Absence of the lens is known as congenital aphakia, or absence of the lens by cataract surgery, removal of the lens only, that is known as aphakia, or any misposition of the lens, displacement of the lens, that is known as, when there is partial displacement of the lens, it is known as subluxation of the lens, and when it is completely displacement of the lens, that is known as dislocation of the lens. So these are the two. Remember, if there is any opacity, absence of the lens, subluxation of the lens, dislocation of the lens, or any artificial lens which is incorporated after cataract surgery, that is known as pseudophakia. This is a figure showing a complete, this is a dilated pupil with the help of drugs, and it is showing dilated white cataract filled with, on all the sides, the opacity, that is known as mature cataract. When the whole substance of the lens, that is nucleus as well as cortex, it is opacified, that is known as mature cataract. When there are clear lens opacities in between the cataract, that is known as immature cataract. This condition is known as when the cataract there is deposition of white deposits, calcium-like deposits on the capsule. This is known as hypermature cataract. You can see these figures with the help of torch examination. Immature cataract, mature cataract, and hypermature cataract. This is a figure showing intraocular lens. This is a dilated pupil, iris, pupil, dilated pupil. You can see a round rhexis. Behind the rhexis lies the intraocular lens. There are two parts of the intraocular lens: optic part. This is optic part through which we can see, and the arms of the lens, that is known as haptic, HAPTIC, haptic of the lens. And this case is after cataract phacoemulsification, after cataract extraction. Now here you can see this is a normal lens. This is a dilated pupil. This is a normal lens, and you can see small amount of fibers of sclerum. These are zonules. Zonules are prominent. So this is a case of subluxation or dislocation of the lens. Subluxation or dislocation of the lens. This figure is not very clear, but you can see this is iris. These are zonules, very magnified view. These are zonules, and this is lens periphery. You can see the lens periphery in the dilated pupil. So this is inferior subluxation, and you can see the iris is very small. Why it is small? Absence of the iris tissue. Aniridia means absence of the iris tissue. Inferior subluxation, there are two conditions. Inferior subluxation, number one. Number two, iris tissue is also absent. There are remnants, the blackish are remnants of the iris tissue, which is attached to this, and these orange like These are vertical zonules of the lens. In this figure, a very magnified view. You can see this is optic of the lens, IOL intraocular lens, and this is haptic. It is a dilated pupil and it is inferiorly displaced. Inferior displacement of an IOL is known as inferior subluxation. Thank you. Any question regarding this? Question add कर दें chat. Chat बंद कर दी थी, chat के जरिए कोई question answer. कोई आया ही नहीं है. Any question regarding this lecture?